Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be discussing triggers and causes of hormones in our pet parrots. It's part 3 in my hormone series, so if you haven't watched the first 2, please do check them out. I'll leave cards to them throughout this video. If you have any problems with hormones, remember we do have a business, Best Behaved Birds, where we can help out, but hopefully these videos will give you a firm foundation and maybe you'll be able to solve the problems your own by recognising them and practicing some mitigation techniques I'll talk about in my final video in the series. It's important to remember that some of these causes and triggers may not necessarily trigger hormones on their own. However, just like with the previous video, if you start checking off loads of these from your list and you're doing loads of them or noticing loads of these causes, then you're going to start leaning towards a hormonal parrot. You may be able to get away with 1 or 2, but the more there are on the list, the more likely that hormones are going to be a big factor. Let's start off our list of causes with a nice obvious one, and that is parrot puberty. I did a video on that, but I felt it's a really important one to cover here. So when a parrot comes of age, normally between 1 and 2 years, they call it terrible twos, you can see an onset of hormonal behaviour and increased aggression, basically because they're like us as teenagers. Everything's a bit confusing. Hormones are really playing a major part in their behaviour, and you may see all of the factors and signs that you just don't want to see. So it's really important that this is a phase they go through, and it varies from parrot to parrot, but it does pass. One of the biggest causes of hormonal behaviour in parrots and general sort of stress and bad behaviour, I guess, is lack of sleep. Parrots need quite a lot of sleep, a lot more than we think and what we need, and the less sleep they get, the more cranky they get and the more hormonal they get. Now, there's a very obvious reason for that. It's because hormones are linked to the light cycle and seasons. So if they're not getting enough sleep, they think it's summertime and breeding season. So therefore it's time to get hormonal because it's nice and safe and warm for the chicks to be raised. Whereas if they're getting more sleep, it's winter and it's not breeding time. Tied in very closely to sleep, and what we talk about sleep cycles, is seasons and seasonal weather changes. These can cause hormones or trigger hormones. For example, when you have a transition from winter to spring or from spring to summer, that can cause hormones. And also, don't forget your bird's biology as well, the natural history. For example, take a conure. They're from South America, so they're in the southern hemisphere. So you may see hormonal behaviour in other times of year as well when seasons change, and it is a very common trigger of hormonal behaviour. When you're looking at hormonal behaviour, somewhere we always look in our consultations is diet. Now, diet can play a major factor in hormones, and that is down to 3 factors. If you provide lots of mushy and moist food, that can lead to hormones because it has the same consistency and texture as regurgitated food. If you provide warm food as well, again, it's very similar to regurgitated food, so therefore they're thinking, oh okay, I'm being fed by my mate, so maybe it's time to get hormonal and get ready to breed. On top of that, if you have a very high abundance in a diet, like for example all seed, there's loads of fat and protein and the like, then that may lead to hormonal behaviour. Finally, portion sizing, linked to abundance. If you have massive portions of food, for example, if you only change your bird's food once a week, for us that's completely alien concept, but I know some people do that. They have this huge abundance of food, they gorge on it, and they think, wow, I've got all this food, so maybe it's time to produce a little egg. It's really important to look at diet when trying to manage hormones and sort of looking for the signs of it. It's the best place to start because it is a big trigger. When we're looking at hormones as well, the cage is another important place to look, and we look for nesting spaces or if the cage is fully covered. When you fully cover the cage, while you may be creating a dark space, which may help with light cycles, you're also creating a dark nest-like space, so it's enclosed and it may simulate a nesting space. Similarly, something we really dislike are cozy huts. Cozy huts really do exacerbate hormonal behaviour. I get a lot of people say, oh, it doesn't do that, doesn't do that, and then we ask them a few questions like, oh, okay, they do. But again, remember, you may be able to get away with a cozy hut if everything else is okay, but we really do not approve of them. So if you have cozy huts, dark spaces, or easy nesting sites, that could cause hormones, especially if you have other factors coming into play too. Something I talk about a lot in many videos is inappropriate touching. If you're touching your parrot inappropriately, this means repeated stroking motions on the back or fully enclosing them constantly and putting pressure on their back. That can cause hormonal behaviour, and it's a major trigger, and it's one, again, people encourage because it is cute, and we see parrots like dogs and other animals who enjoy that sort of behaviour. Parrot may enjoy it, but in a completely wrong way, and again lead to stress and frustration. So it's important to touch appropriately, because if you don't, it could be a major cause of hormones or trigger for hormonal behaviour. And just as a sort of example, if you see Pickles here, she's cuddling me at the back of my neck, but she's cuddling to one side only, which is kind of a friendship thing. If Pickles were thrusting up against me, that would be completely different. If I was petting Pickles in that way, fully enclosing her, again, that would be completely different. Something that we're all guilty of, and sometimes even we're guilty of, is repeated encouragement of heightened behaviour. So when your parrot's really excited, really like mega, and you're feeding on the energy and get really excited, and you're constantly feeding that and encouraging that, that can sometimes lead to hormonal behaviour. Because they're in a heightened state, they're being encouraged for it, it makes them want to behave in that manner more. We're just going to forward down here while we talk about that. So it's important to be mindful of how your energy levels are and also your parrots when you're training and interacting with them, because mostly when it's calm, you will see less of those undesirable behaviours, which we see in all sorts of contexts. Sometimes boredom and lack of stimulation can lead to problems as well. If your parrot has nothing to do, there's no toys, nothing to interact with, and all they can do is eat and sit, that can sometimes lead to undesirable or hormonal behaviours because they've got nothing else to do, so they just think, okay, that's basically what I'm here for. And it's sad to see that sometimes this is encouraged purely to encourage breeding. Not something we would ever recommend because it just damages our parrot's welfare. Something else to be mindful of is mirrors and reflective surfaces. Often mirrors in the cage can lead to, well actually we think they lead to stress and frustration, but that's a different issue. Can lead to hormonal behaviour because your parrot sees another parrot, they're constantly interacting with them, they're mirroring the hormonal behaviour, so it makes it worse. Now I wouldn't say that reflective surfaces are all bad. Sometimes they can be enriching, but we prefer that they're used or utilised in a sort of a supervised and constructive manner, because you do see some cute behaviours, but again, if it's constantly accessible and they're constantly interacting with it in that way, it can lead to hormones. So guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this video useful and interesting. The next one will be techniques on mitigating hormones. Again, if you haven't seen the previous 2 videos in the series, I do encourage you to watch them. You'll hopefully find them very interesting, and all of them together will hopefully help you lots with any hormonal behaviour problems you have. But in the meantime, from me and Pickles, who seems to want to go to the canvas, take care and see you later.